Hey, this is Usama Young, founder of Believe in You. Thank you for joining us for another conversation amongst our young leaders, life, lessons, and leadership. This is our financial education series. If you have any questions afterward, visit believeinyou.org. That's believeintheletteru.org. Thank you again.
Quick introductions. We got Bob back by popular demand to provide the financial education. We're going to address budgeting today. D. Jones, we got 50 in. You're a little late, man. And I know you already got workout in, so that's just double time. He ain't looking yet. Outside of that, I gotta go to the intros around the room, just a few. I know we talked about goal setting, accomplishing goals, consistency. I'm gonna put one on the spot right now. I just now was catching up with him. Brock, what you got for me, man? Goal setting for this upcoming week.
Nothing much really. Hi, I'm Brock Morgan. I'm from Kannapolis, North Carolina. I go to A.L. Brown High School, and I'm a football player. I play Mike linebacker and tight end. And some goals that I have set, I was invited to a camp at Wingate University. So my goal is just to make a great impression on all the coaches and do well. And then here's my brother, Bryce.
Hi, my name is Bryce Morgan. I'm from Kannapolis, North Carolina. I go to Kannapolis Middle School. I play football, basketball, and I play basketball.
Okay. Good stuff. Hey, Brock, don't forget, we got reminded in the chat, you're not a football player. You're a student athlete. And more.
Yes, sir.
All right?
Yes, sir.
All right, good stuff. Appreciate that reminder, DY. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get this thing started. You know what? Let's get one more. Josh in the building. Goal for this week.
Josh Taylor. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. I just graduated from Mallard Creek High School, and a goal for this week is like to get all my stuff ready for school, like make sure I got everything right, and start reading more.
All right, good stuff. Have you started Outliers?
No, I started reading the little online thing, but I can't really read the book on the computer. I need like to have a paper copy, so I'm just gonna wait till I go get the book.
Nope, you don't even gotta go get it. I'm coming by the neighborhood later. I'm gonna drop you off my copy. I finished it off.
All right.
Bet. All right, Bob, I'm gonna let you take it from there.
Okay, good. Since a few people still have their mics on, I'll just get my questions in right away. First of all, if anyone was on 2 weeks ago when I first was introduced, can one or two people just share anything that you learned or heard from the time before?
You know what, Bob? I almost forgot. I gotta tell them to download Kahoot.
Oh, right, yeah, that's right.
You got your phones. Download Kahoot before we get in the recap of the last financial session.
How you spell it?
It's a purple box with a white K. Kahoot,
Yeah, and it's spelled
exclamation point.
K-A-H-U-T-E, right? Or something like that?
H-O-T, K-A-H-O-O-T.
Yeah.
Purple box, a white K with an exclamation point. Free download on your phone.
At the end of the session, we're gonna get into an activity that Mr. Clarence had provided some guidance on. My bad now. You got it. You got it, Bob.
Okay. Yeah, that's how it looks. So anyone can share, if you were on 2 weeks ago, just one or two things that you heard or took away from the session?
I learned something from the session. I remember that was my first time being introduced to, it was commercial real estate and residential real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I heard about that, and that really interested me. And I wanted to start learning about how to get like properties to start businesses and things like that.
Okay, that's fantastic. That was from the little video we saw. Anybody else have anything from last time?
I think one of the things that resonated with me is when you talked about that we live in a ownership society.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about how all the tax breaks go to people who are in ownership. So that was one of the things that really stuck with me.
Okay, that's fantastic. So before we go on to mute, the question for today is a expression that we often hear. It's not how much you make, but it's what you do with what you make. Anyone have any thoughts on what that really means? It's not how much you make, it's what you do with what you make.
I think that's very important. I think that means that it's how you make your money work for you, because a lot of the time you hear people say, "Oh, I do this for money," or "I do that for money," but at the end of the day, the way that you can really get to the top and really make your money work for you, stock investing, entrepreneurship, owning your own business, and things like that. So I think that's what that means.
Okay, that's exactly right. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Again, my name is Bob Wynn, and I wear a number of hats. One of them is my LLC, which is Akamai, and it's just a organization that I set up to promote financial education and wealth building strategies, especially for communities of color. And then I do a lot of work through a nonprofit, Asset Builders of America. The website is assetbuilders.org. And I have a little LLC that's focused on financial education specifically for athletes. And we'll see where this goes because it might dovetail with that company, which is called Pro Squared. I just preface this sequence that we're going to develop under the title, Life is Good, the Prequel. And I always find it very fascinating to talk to young people because the directions and trajectory of your life can go in so many different directions that it's almost miraculous in terms of where you could end up. And today, we're just going to talk about budgeting because that is an important part of being successful as well. And so basically, when we get to the subject of saving and budgeting, let me just say, when we use the term financial literacy, and I don't know if anyone's taking notes or whatever, but just to try to remember that there are 5 pillars under that, the way I present it. One is credit. The other is what we call personal finance. And in personal finance, that's what we're talking about today, is primarily saving and budgeting. The third is investing, and that's my favorite. The fourth is entrepreneurship. And the fifth is basic economics. There's a phrase that the colleagues I work with that we use all the time, and we really want to break it down and unpack what it really means. But we like to promote the economic way of thinking and living. There are many subcategories in financial literacy, but I usually refer to those as the big 5. And today, under personal finance, we'll talk about budgeting and saving. A little bit about what is a budget, why you want to keep a budget, what we mean by disposable income. That's a really important concept that I hope you guys will lock in on today. We talk about not just assets, because remember, 2 of the most important concepts in financial literacy for young people is the word compounding. We're not talking about that too much today. And the second most important for young people, but the most important for adults, is this word net worth. And we know that that's just a formula of assets minus liabilities. But what we really want to begin to think about, as Clarence mentioned, the ownership society, is to think about what assets do we really want to own? And lock in your head, just like the gentleman said he's interested in real estate. Focus on wealth producing assets. And wealth producing assets come in 2 basic types. One, where the asset itself appreciates in value over time. And that's what we're looking for with stocks when we invest. But also, it could just generate income, just like someone owns a property and that tenant is paying them rent on a regular basis. You can generate wealth by generating income. But why do we want that income? Because we want it to have it more than enough to overcome our expenses. And what's left, we call disposable income. And rather than live paycheck to paycheck, we want to live in a way that we have money left at the end of each pay period and after we've paid our expenses. And with this disposable income, we want to use it to acquire wealth producing assets. This was one term that when I first got married, my wife and I had to really talk about. PYF. I don't know if anyone wants to unmute and tell me what they think PYF means.
Pay yourself first.
That's exactly right. Pay yourself first. And when you're setting up your budget, be sure you have a line item for saving as well. And we may go to a budget worksheet that just gives you sort of a sample. So one of the things I showed last time was this language of money. And I said, talk the talk and walk the walk, because it's one thing to learn this information, but the real power is when you implement or execute what you're learning. And we talked last time about the difference between income and wealth. Please know that those are two very different things. Both are good, both are important, but again, we want to more and more use our income to acquire wealth producing assets. Also, another terminology dichotomy, earned income versus unearned income. And it's very interesting because unearned well, we all know what earned income is. It's the money we earn from our labor when we have a 8-to-5 job or what have you. Unearned income actually comes in two flavors. So when I'm in the neighborhood, in the hood, so to speak, and I ask about unearned income, the young people will tell me about receiving SSI or supplemental Social Security, or they'll talk about receiving, some other type of government benefits or Section 8 subsidy on their housing. And they receive that from government and they didn't work for it. So it is unearned income. But what I'm interested in is more people elevating their thinking and their aspirations to build a pile of money, which is a portfolio of wealth, and then let that wealth generate income for you. I used to call this Mitt Romney rich. When you remember when he ran against Obama, his portfolio was worth $225 million. So he doesn't have to wake up each morning and say, oh, I got to go report to the man. I got to go punch a clock, or I got to deliver on this consultant contract. He wakes up in the morning and says, I think I want to go to the beach, or I think I want to do a press conference, or I just want to hang out with my grandkids, because his pile of wealth is going to generate the income he needs for his living expenses. So that's the kind of unearned income that we mean here, is enough wealth, especially when you get my age and older. You want to have a portfolio that's going to generate your income, because you'll no longer be working and generating income from earned income. Saving and investing. Back in the day, savings accounts used to pay a little bit more per interest rate. It could have been 3-4%. So it was good, and you could build some wealth through saving. But today's world, we need to really know that saving is good, just like income is good, but saving is not investing. And investing, putting your money to work in higher producing assets, is going to allow you to make more money on your money. Someone mentioned your money working for you, and that's really what we want you to begin to think about. So you want to build a nest egg in saving. And I sent Usama a article that I wrote about saving for a rainy day. It gives you some suggestions on saving, and he can share that with you all if you are interested, and it might even be good for some of your other family members too. But we want to really think about investing, and I hope we do a few more sessions relating to investing. It's so powerful for young people to learn, and it's something that can really set apart people who learn to invest versus those who don't. And because we're talking about budgeting today, wants and needs is sort of an old school concept, but it actually is probably, it's interesting. It's actually more important today than it was back when I was the age of people on this particular call, because we didn't even have that many varieties. I think I remember buying sneakers, and everybody just got Chuck Taylors, and that was just it. And then for a while, people just got Converse. But now you've got Adidas and Nikes and Reeboks and so many choices that it's even more important to stay within the discipline of really spending your money for expenses on needs, and then being very conscious of getting the want that you really do want and you can afford, and you'll want it over the long term. But many people slip up right here because they really are confused or don't even think about the difference between a want and a need. How are you ever going to have extra income, disposable, to acquire wealth producing assets if you buy every want that comes your way? In today's world, it's too many wants to be able to afford them all, no matter how wealthy you are. We've already talked about it doesn't matter how much you make as much as it matters what you do with what you make. There are a lot of examples of people with lower incomes who've ended up being very, very wealthy and successful. So one of the mantras that is very important that everybody focus on and live your life by is live below your means. And that just means be sure that your income is higher than your regular expenses. And another way to put it is to spend less than you make. I always have to have a slight disclaimer because I'm not the best at budgeting and being disciplined. So I would say do as I say, not as I do, because I tend to overspend sometimes myself. So I don't like to, pretend to be perfect on all this stuff. But if you guys are young enough, you can develop better habits and stay inside this structure and framework, which is going to allow you to have even more at the finish line, which is financial security and security for your family, not to mention the legacy of the generations to come. So it's very important. Keep a budget, minimize your expenses, maximize your income. Many things we talk about is formulaic. It's a two-pronged process. And you can think about just like a sport, football is defense and offense. And I think about our expenses as defense. You want to keep as many away from you as possible. And you want to protect your portfolio and not let these liabilities come in and tackle you for a loss. But then you think about your income, and that's your offense. You want to rack up some points, and those points are in terms of building your asset base and maximizing assets that generate income for you. That's your offense. You have to play both and play both well. Some people focus more on one than the other, and that's fine. But because we live in the society we live, the upside is huge for increasing our income. And that's the excitement and the good news of the future that's ahead of you. If you're disciplined and max out on your own marketability, you can really generate a lot of income, and then you can have expenses, but you can afford them. A term that is important to know, and we talk about this a little more in basic economics, is to be a critical consumer. And that just means the same as distinguishing between wants and needs, but going a little bit further and beginning to understand that we also live in a society that we talked about before. What was the Latin phrase we used? Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. That is a producer-oriented rule that favors producers in the United States of America. So consumers are out there like pawns on a chessboard, just waiting to be captured and have their money drained because they want this, they want that. And they become what I term hyper consumers at the expense of building their wealth base and collecting assets. You guys, one of the most valuable things you have in your lives is Usama Young. I really enjoy hearing how he brings you in. He gets you communicating. He asks you to set goals, and those kinds of things are setting you up for success. So by all means, listen to what he has to say and take the goal setting very, very seriously. As I worked on this presentation, I got a couple of slides from a couple of other presentations that have been delivered to young people that I work with. And this came from one of the banks that has presented to our Millionaires Club in Madison. This came from George Yelder, who works at BMO Harris Bank. And his example is to simply show that even though you're setting goals, you want to think about them in 3 distinct categories. Short-term goals. What are you doing between now and before you go back to school or college? Intermediate goal might be saving for college, or what you're going to do in the next year that you might want to buy a car, or you may have some other trip you want to take. That might be an intermediate or midterm goal. And then lastly, you really want to think about your long-term goals. Don't be a knucklehead like yours truly. I remember coming back to visit my parents from college, maybe it was a sophomore, and my dad said, "Bob, stick around and let's talk." And I said, "Dad, what do we have to talk about?" And I was around 20 years old. And he said, "Your retirement." And I thought he was absolutely nuts. But if I had listened to him and actually set up an IRA account, which we could have done back in that time, I would maybe not even be on this call because I'd be out of the country having a good time somewhere. So you have the advantage of just planting some seeds toward your long-term goals now, and they can pay off in dividends later on. And with that, I will say every young person should have some sort of career objective in mind. If you're don't have a roadmap for yourself, then you don't know where you're going to end up. So everyone, even if you want to change your mind later, do have a career goal in mind. So when we're setting up a plan or financial plan, there are many aspects to it. One is creating your budget. We'll talk about a little bit there, but it's again, just listing out all your expenses and listing your sources of income and comparing the two, and hopefully the income is higher than your expenses. Weighing your wants and needs, and then analyzing opportunity cost. This is another basic economic term. This is why we say basic economics is something that every person in the United States needs to have just a little bit of a feel for it. Opportunity cost is something that exists, whether we know it or know how to define it. It's basically the next best choice. We oftentimes say, if you, instead of buying the Nike shoes, buy the Nike stock. Well, the Nike shoes might cost about $100, let's say, and a share of Nike stock costs about $100. So if you decide to buy those shoes, your opportunity cost, among other things, is the opportunity to take the $100 and buy a share of Nike stock. So every decision you make, every move you make has an opportunity cost. My opportunity cost for being on this Zoom right now is I'll delay my lunch, or I'm not reading the Outlier book that I'd like to get started on and read that. So every move you make has an opportunity cost in terms of that next best choice you would have with your time or even with your money. Make a spending and savings plan. And again, it's sort of two plans that combine to be one plan. One is your expenses or spending plan. The other side would be your saving and investing plan. And that's what we mean by pay yourself first. Don't set up a budget where you spend everything that you're making. The budget should include a saving and investing line item to it as well. Limit expenses when necessary. And this is something that's interesting that it's even here, but it's actually very, very important because all of us pretty much gravitate in the direction of the people that we are around. So, and for me, being a person that gets influenced by other people from time to time, one of the things I did was surrounded myself with very successful people. And while I could have surrounded myself with less successful people, and I think I would have joined those less successful people. Actually, one of my best friends is dead now because he was not a person to follow in terms of his lifestyle and drugs and partying too much, versus surrounding yourself with people who are really going somewhere and are really spending money in a responsible way. So for young people, I can't emphasize enough how it's important to be part of a group that is really responsible and going in the direction long-term that you want to go. We budget to help you discipline your spending. That's why we do it. And of course, we want to set up a budget we might call it tight, or we might use this word frugal, a frugal budget where expenses are considerably less than your income. And what does that do? It creates more disposable income from you. This is what is the fun part of your budget, is to have disposable income. And of course, use that to acquire your wealth producing assets. And here I wanted Usama to read it and let me know his thoughts, because I see this statistic all the time. By the time an athlete has retired 2 years or so, 78% of former NFL players have gone bankrupt or are in financial distress. And within 5 years after retirement, about 60% of former NBA players have gone broke. Usama, I'm sure you've seen this. I just wonder what you think about it, or does it offend you?
Nah, it doesn't. It doesn't offend me, but I immediately do see numbers and think about how accurate they may be and how the study may have gone to get these numbers. It's highlighted for me, whether it's 78% or 60% or 50%, whatever it is, it's still staggering. We don't want the number to be high at all. And being that I'm in the space of supporting NFL players currently and beyond their NFL experience, I immediately say we got to lower whatever number is out there. But I go to the thought of, man, is this counting the guys that make it to camp and then they no longer
Froze up.
and no longer played? Is this counting the guys that had a 1-year career or 2-year career? It says my internet is unstable, so I'm not sure if you all could hear me. But I immediately think it's a highlighted fact of you never know how long you're going to play in the NFL, and that's why we don't call it an NFL career. We call it an NFL experience. And no matter how long you play, you still have to start thinking about how you're going to budget and how you do what you first said, you spend below your means. So that's where my thought initially goes.
Okay. I appreciate that because I see this stat so often. And one thing that I totally agree with you on, the best stat you can get is from Sports Illustrated, a magazine. You know, where's the true documentable research? So at some point, I would like to go below this number and see if we can really get something documented in an official academic way on that number. But again, what you're doing, Usama, is what I've just always felt fervently that needs to happen. The intervention needs to occur with the younger generation of athletes, middle school and high school, because as you said, If you learn everything the hard way by experience, you're simply not going to be able to recoup or have near as much as if you go into these high wage earning experiences and know what to do with your money from the very beginning. So even if you, and this is so funny because we have so many kids of color, you ask them what they aspire to and they want to be a professional athlete. And in my mind, I'm thinking, do they really want to be a professional athlete, or do they just want the money that comes with being a professional athlete? Because a lot of them will become a professional athlete, but they really won't have the financial long-term stability. And so the real goal and the way we want to orient our thinking is that you really want to generate wealth and have financial security and stability. If athletics is your means to that end, that's fine. But be sure you're not just saying you want to be the professional athlete as your end game, because then you're going to sell your future short. So I appreciate what Usama had to say about that. The 3 steps in keeping your budget on track is basically to track your spending, identify your income and expenses, and analyze your cash flow. The net from income and expenses we just refer to as your cash flow. If we're looking at a budget, the things that we want to look at is all of our sources of income. While you're young, you may not have that many sources, but some of you do have allowances. I certainly had odd jobs of mowing lawns. I mowed lawns till I almost went crazy when I was in high school and even middle school. That's how I generated my income. But then you can have other sources, whether it be interest and dividends or from some sort of job that you have. But you want to tally up all of that on a weekly or monthly basis and do the same thing with all of your expenses. Where are your bills? What kinds of regular expenses you are incurring? And when you're setting up a budget, think about the difference between fixed expenses and the difference of flexible expenses. I have normally used the term variable expenses. And if you go into accounting, I don't think they use the word flexible as much as they use the word variable. So those are the 2 different types of expenses. If I'm paying my phone bill, that's normally fixed on a monthly subscription basis. If I am paying for, groceries, that's going to vary from month to month, depending upon different things that I might purchase. And so you want to sort of think about that as you go. The categories of spending, we want to, it's interesting, philanthropy, giving, your church tithes are something that is an expense that you want to account for, so that when you put together your budget, you're thinking about everything. Many people, when they first get a job that they are going to get a W-2 tax report for, they're very surprised that if someone says you're going to make $400 a week, by the time they get their check back, it might just be $335 because taxes are taken out. And I've never played professional sports, but I do hear that sometimes that's a big surprise when a big contract is negotiated and it's calculated to be a certain amount per week. It's less than that if taxes are taken out. And then of course you have to pay for your food, clothing, and shelter. And other things that are included would be your auto expenses, miscellaneous debt you might have, other business expenses. I'm coming back here to fun and entertainment. You talk about a variable expense there. There is one for you. It can be down to 0, or it could be that you go out every Friday and Saturday night and spend for yourself and your girlfriend or whomever, and it can really add up quickly. So here's what I normally say, and I advise people. We're all human and we want to have some fun. So have a vice. but don't have all the vices that there are. My wife and I enjoy travel, so we kind of overspend on travel. But what's very funny is in our garage right now, both cars are well over 15 years old. They're probably like mine, 05, 15, mine is 15 years old exactly. And then I have my wife's car is about 20 years old. So so we don't have vices for cars. Clothing, we don't spend much on that. But boy, if you try to acquire clothes, to keep up with the Joneses, and cars to keep up with the Joneses, and your travel, you want to post on Facebook that you were in the Bahamas, or like a friend of mine, I just saw he's in the grill right now, and we all know it because he posted it. And so you just can't afford to have all of that. Insurance is a whole nother subject. It's one of those subjects that you guys don't have to worry about if you're young right now. But this is a big difference between wealthy people and non-wealthy people. The sort of subtext of insurance is what we call risk management. And if we aren't focused on our insurance portfolio, our risk might be out of sorts in terms of things that could really set us back. So as you get older, you want to think about being sure that you're covered. One big difference is we own our home, and we're not going to get a mortgage unless we got insurance on our home. If somebody, or if our house burnt down or what have you, then that value has to be replaced. And so we have insurance for that. Many people who rent, the landlord doesn't tell them to get renter's insurance. Well, the landlord is going to have the building insured. So if it builds down, the bricks and mortar of that building is going to be replaced. But the person living inside that apartment, their furniture, their valuables, their clothes will not be replaced by the landlord's insurance. And renter's insurance doesn't even cost that much. So that's a big thing that a lot of people living close to paycheck don't spend that extra $25 a month for insurance. And the same is, like, I know a DJ who had his stuff stolen out of his car, his equipment. And if he had had renter's insurance, it would have helped to pay for some of that. So that's one of those things to keep in mind. Just a note that you want to be aware of the little expenses, because on a consistent basis, they could sink you all the way. And I'll just take another 10 minutes or so, and then hopefully everyone's downloaded your Kahoot. And I'm going to ask Clarence to give us just a taste of how we can have fun and learn through the games that we can play through Kahoot. This managing your budget, these are just some of the things that I normally advise people. You want to keep very good records. I can't tell you how important this is. If you think you want to be an entrepreneur, just get in the habit of keeping good records. I spent 13 years as director for the Bureau of Minority Business Development. So I have seen hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs come through our office. The ones who can get funding and financing not only have positive portfolio and assets, but they have records that we can review and understand the quality business model that they are following. Another entrepreneur comes in and their records are a shambles, or they're not keeping them. We can't even give them a loan, or we can't help them because their records aren't telling us the story of what's really happening inside that business. The same is true with your household, keeping good records. We've said enough times, control and manage your expenses, wants versus needs. Again, don't be a hyper consumer, be a critical consumer. Consumers enrich producers and owners. Then, as we say, old school, if you're gonna buy Nike shoes, buy the stock. In other words, this is a consumer activity. This is a producer activity. Producers are the ones that build the wealth. Credit is a whole nother subject. There's a difference between good credit and bad credit. And basically, you only want to use credit to acquire wealth producing assets. That's what we mean by good credit. Bad credit is if you buy those Nike shoes on a credit card, and that's a depreciating asset. It is not an appreciating asset. Increase your income. This is my sort of favorite side. I guess I like to play offense. Yes, you can play defense and decrease your expenses, but sometimes that decreases your lifestyle. It decreases your fun. So the other side of that coin is to try to be sure that you're steadily building your income and ways you do that. One thing I've noticed about my African-American friends versus my non-African-American friends, a couple of things on this page. One is sometimes people are in between jobs and they're spending down their savings while they're in between jobs. And I hate to say it, but I see African-Americans doing that more than non-African-Americans. And that really drains our ultimate portfolio growth. So always, once you get out into adulthood, keep a job, you know, if you're still trying to build your wealth. You can have multiple streams of income. I know you hear about that, and you want to really actualize that. Think about hobbies. Some people, you know, have different hobbies, and it might be that they like to put together train sets or what have you. But personally, my hobby is investing in stocks. So why not have a hobby that generates income for yourselves? Really think about that, because if you can find something that you enjoy and you can also make money from it, that is a winning situation for life. I don't know anything about becoming a social media Mongol, but I don't know how many of you have heard of the huge entrepreneurship conference called South by Southwest. It's every year, except this year because of the pandemic. They didn't have it in Austin, Texas. But I've been going there each year, and they have these young cats that can be 14, 18 years old, and they talk about how they're making money through social media big time. So it's there for those of you who know how to do that. Here's another is, be careful that you're just, even though you're financially set, that you're not underwriting other people's lifestyles or loaning money and people aren't paying you back. Even young people, when you loan money to your friends, set it up so that they pay you back. And you know what? That's not just for you to get your money back. But I have experienced a culture of young people who borrow and will verbally say they're going to pay back, but then they don't pay back. And my wife always says that if everybody paid me back who owes me, we'd be extra wealthy. And so I think it's very important that you train your peers to be people who pay back. That's how capitalism works. It works on clarity of expectation. And you're not doing people a service if you don't make them pay you back. Associate with frugal people. I just am fascinated by how you can make money by being a great speaker or writer. So as you are encouraged through Usama and others to speak up, to really develop your communication skills, that's just really huge. At another time, when I talk to some of Usama's other adult colleagues, I want to talk a lot about being on corporate boards of directors. It's just amazing that it's not even a full-time job, but the corporate board members meet 4 times a year, and they get paid $100,000 just to be on the board of directors. This is the ultimate good old boy network, mostly Caucasian, a few women these days, still very little in terms of African Americans. I mention it for you young people because you're in the prequel, but you're setting up for what the reality of your life is going to be. And you've got to have a certain professional skill set to be on corporate boards. Millionaire Secrets. This is from a good friend of mine, Stephen DeVogus, who's a lawyer in Milwaukee. And I'll just read the first one. To get more, you have to become more, and you have to do more. And that's essentially what he's saying here. And I'm old school. I think that we start with the piggy banks for your younger siblings, but for everybody, it's amazing how much money you can build by just taking your loose change and dumping it in a piggy bank. At my house right now, I think we probably got about 5 piggy banks in various stages of fullness, at which we will empty and then start over again. These, as you become adults, first of all, I'll say everybody get your own savings account, a bank or credit union. And then as you become older and start buying stocks, you can also have certain tax advantaged programs. We can go into more detail on those things one day if you like. One investment fund that my wife and I use for a lot of the young people in our lives, nieces and nephews, is moneta.com. They have one fund that's called the Core Investment Fund, and it's sort of a child-friendly fund. They invest in Disney, Nike, McDonald's, and companies that young people can relate to the products that they have. And the nonprofit, it's not a nonprofit, but the mutual fund makes good money. One of my first loves is investment clubs. So we can talk about that someday if we have time or if you want to hear more about it. I've just started trying to build a list of cash management apps and websites. This is today's way of doing things. When you go off mute and we have some discussion, if you know of some others, I would like to hear any others that you know of. One day I might even have someone present specifically on mint.com. I hear that that's very comprehensive in what it can do. An associate of mine, Ben Engel, told me about personalcapital.com. He said he's just going to start using it. Honeydew is another he just found. Everyone should be aware of creditkarma.com. That's how you can check your credit as you get older. And credit is a whole nother subject under financial literacy. I'm kind of forced to use these vehicles here. It's fascinating to me. You young people don't write checks anymore. And if I want to get paid from young people, I got to have a PayPal account, or we do Cash App for my investment club. And I've used Venmo, and I want to know what else is out there that people might be using. I am going to hold off right there, and I can come back and talk a little bit about checking and savings and savings institutions. Just this one thing to remember, pay yourself first. And that just means for every budget you put together, be sure you have a line item for money that you want to save. We can talk a little bit about things that you might want to set goals for yourself in terms of jobs that interest you. What is your dream job? Go for that. Develop skills so that you can generate more income. And then I'll just leave this for a bit where we can find out from you if there are other topics that you would want down the road. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Usama. Usama, we did have Clarence who wanted to just show the Kahoot. We don't have to go through it too long. And then we can also do some Q&A, whatever order, Usama, you prefer.
That's perfect, man. Thank you, Bob. That was a great presentation. I took a lot of notes. And also, I got a young fella, Josh, who's going to actually provide us with notes. And we'll be sending those out in the next day or two after this session. But I'm kind of like, dang, there was a lot of stuff in there that I need to work on. And as a young adult, you know, I had no clue about it. And I know as an adolescent, I wasn't thinking about it at all. But you dropped several nuggets there, and we appreciate you as always. I'm going to actually pass it over to Clarence and let him talk about this, what is it, Kahoot. And yes, hopefully, guys, if you didn't download it already, we're able to get on here and do this short quiz, and then we'll move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? So the Kahoot is just a 10-question short little quiz. We're basically running it as a, kind of as a pilot to see how everybody likes it. And it's just to, just help reinforce some of the things that we're learning on during these conversations. And it also has a, little competition element to it, because you will be able to see who is, getting the most questions correct, or, is going to be the front runner. So I'm going to share my screen with you all right now. And actually, before I do that, let me go to my Kahoot app. So when you have the Kahoot app up, I don't know if you can see this on my phone, but once I put the Kahoot up, there's going to be a pin code that's going to come in. All you do is press this little button right here at the bottom. You see, and then they're going to ask you for the pin, and then you can give yourself a nickname, and everything is going to pop up on the screen that I'm going to share, so you'll be able to see it in just a second. Okay. All right. Let me do this now. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna just play this Investing 101. All right, so we're just gonna do a classic game. So it's every man for himself. And then you're just gonna type in that pin that you see.
So where it says enter pin, you press on that, and then it brings up the spot where you put in the game pin, 694.
Yes.
163. And then enter. Everybody gets a nickname.
Everybody good to go?
Sir.
How many people are in this Zoom meeting?
I didn't check the gallery view.
Okay.
We got 10 people, 11 on the Kahoot as of right now.
Yeah.
It's about.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. You got 16 participants.
Usama, are you gonna play it?
Oh, it says you're in. Pause.
Okay.
All right. So it looks like, I guess everybody is in. We got 11 people on, well, 12.
Cool.
All right. Oh, 13. It looks like people still getting in there. All right. We good to go?
Yes.
Yep, good to go.
All right. We'll go ahead and hit start.
First question, wealth is best technically described as net worth, lots of money, rich, high income.
I'm doing it on my computer. I have to like minimize it. Now I can't even see like the question.
Oh. Is that your excuse?
It does work best if you've got two devices. So that's one thing we've got to sort of figure out. And we're just doing this as a test, but we want to see how this goes, and then we'll try to figure out how to make it better and better. But
yeah, cause my questions and answers not popping up. I got to go back and forth.
Okay, and then what we'll do is read out the question, so you'll also hear it a couple of times. That might help you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll read out the questions.
Okay.
And the answers.
Yeah, and the answers too. Yes. All right. Going to the next question. So let's see. So Looks like Josh is in first place on the leaderboard.
So one thing, Clarence,
Mhm.
it also tallies how fast you answer, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I like to take my time, man. Josh, you quick with it. All right.
All right, we're going to the next question. Income is the same thing as wealth. This is a true or false question. So triangle if it's, diamond if it's true, triangle if it's false. All right.
Let's see if I was quick with it this time. Okay, Tay, I see you.
All right, next question. Which of the following is not one of the key factors of compounding?
Ooh.
Is it amount, that's triangle, diamond time, square education, circle interest rates?
Just really checking for if I was listening, man.
It's a smart group, Usama. You've been doing well with them.
That's all you. That's all you. You got it.
I just wanted to see myself in first place once.
Ooh, I'm on fire, boy. You see that? Ooh.
Which of the following investment is considered safest? Is it triangle gold, diamond bond, circle savings account, or a square stock?
We got some mixed answers. We're gonna have to go over a few on these. We can keep it going though. We can keep it going because I know this is the trial run for it.
All right. Over the long term, which normally earns the highest rate of return? Is it triangle bond, diamond savings account, square stock, or circle gold?
I was too quick. I want to go back, man.
All right. Let's see. All right, next one. Financially speaking, a stock is, and then you have to finish the sentence. Is it a triangle, group of cows, diamond, products on the shelf, circle, a loan, or square, ownership in a company?
You.
I was cheating.
As an investment, a bond is triangle, your word, diamond, friendship, circle, a loan, or square, money as a release from jail?
Those were good choices.
All right. Which item would you least prefer to buy using credit? Is it triangle a house, circle a car, diamond a television, or square college tuition? A liability is something you owe. And this is a true or false. Diamond if it's true, triangle if it's false.
Well, congratulations to Usama. Is that it or?
No, we have one more question. Which word combination best corresponds to entrepreneur? Is it triangle time value, diamond cash credit, circle assets and liabilities, or square risk reward? that was a tough one.
Usama, congratulations. Oh, I'm number 2.
I see you. I see you.
Yeah.
Who's that at number 1? Who's that at number 1? Debo.
Debo.
Okay, Debo. And then you got the runners up down here in 4 and 5, Josh and Bryce.
Very, very nice.
There's 2 questions.
I like to thank my mom,
What came in
God,
first?
and you know, all my friends that support me. I'm just playing.
All right.
Yeah, you got 10 out of 10. Debo, where are you in Charlotte, DMV, or where?
I'm from Cleveland, but I'm in Charlotte. I was gonna say earlier, you 2 weeks ago, you inspired me. I used to be, when I got out of college, I used to be a financial planner. So last week I went and got my life and health license. So I'm gonna start back into doing that again.
Nice, very nice. That's a great outcome already. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what company you work for yet?
You inspired me.
Thank you. Do you know what company you work for yet?
I'm gonna be working with Transamerica.
Transamerica, very good. Okay. We have some good friends down in Charlotte, so I'll look forward to staying in contact with you. I saw something in the chat that was amazing. Caleb, can you read what you wrote?
Absolutely. So I do a little, you know, I'm not an expert, but I always look at once I learn more about stocks when talking to young people. So I always use this Amazon example about investing, trying to get kids or younger people to invest in stocks as early as possible. So Amazon's IPO in 1997. So I can go back. In 1997, a pair of Jordans were $150. So Amazon's IPO in 1997 was $18 per share. So and today it's worth $3,008.91. So if one, instead of buying that pair of Jordans, would have purchased 10 Amazon stocks at $180, instead of purchasing those Jordans today, they would have invested $30,089.10. If you take away that $180, your return on investment, your ROI, is $29,909.10. So I always put those equations up to kind of give kids that wow factor, that value over time that you may not see it today, but if you over time, you know, it will definitely be dividends to you.
I mean, that is the most graphic example that I've seen, but compounding works that way many, many times over, maybe not quite to that same degree, but this is a fact. And it's just amazing. And then Caleb, what percent of African Americans in 1997 do you think bought the Jordans versus the percent that bought the stock?
Right, I know in 1997 kids were skipping school. In my generation, I was a freshman in high school, so guys were skipping school to go buy those Jordans at the mall. Now my parents couldn't afford it in 1997, but I seen a lot of friends would come back. And my hindsight 2020, you know, I wish somebody could have tapped on our shoulders to say that, like we are tapping on these kids' shoulders now to tell them that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Okay, with that, I'm pretty much done for today. I guess just leave it to Usama. And Usama, that slide deck I sent you, the last 1 or 2 slides has choices of some other subjects for the future. Or you may come up with some other things, but I'm definitely interested in feedback for how this is going, and would certainly want to continue to the extent people think it makes sense. And I sort of am learning myself, because I want to just take whatever subject you request and get a presentation done. Because normally I choose it and I just stay in my fun lane of investing, but there's more to all of this than just investing. And so I'm really sort of enriching myself by getting a little bit out of my comfort zone, presenting whatever you guys say you want. And I'm finding it kind of fun so far.
I love it. I love it. I'm glad we pushed you to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. We see one hand up, and Darrell. I'll let him ask that question before we go into what our next plans will be and getting the next topic of discussion set.
Hey, Caleb, you brought up a good point in terms of those Jordans. If I'm looking to invest, how do I do that? Like, how do I find Nike to invest money in those stocks? Because I still want to do it, but for me, I have a financial guy, so he's really been doing it for me. But I want to know where I can go just buy something for $100 and forget about it for a little bit.
Are you asking Caleb or Mr. Wynn?
It don't matter either. It seems like y'all both.
I'm not a financial expert, but I know it's so easier now. Like, you got Robinhood, you got so many trade and so many things that you can jump into. That's why I tell the kids that you can just do that. So I'm like, you got to find, and that's going to take a lot of reading. You got to find the next Amazon. You got to read up. You got to kind of, look at those trends. So I try to get that hook. That's that hook to engage them. I know Uncle Bob can give us a deeper dive in the.
Yeah,
that's definitely not my lane right there.
Before I let Uncle Bob get in there, can I? I think the best way with stocks, if you looking to park it for a long time, is to invest in something called DRIPs. It's a dividend reinvestment plan. A DRIP. So basically, with a DRIP, you go straight through the company. So, for example, I think Nike does offer DRIPs. Now they may charge the only downside to DRIPs, they might charge some fees, but it's a lot of companies that do not charge the extra fees. But the thing is, let's say you put in $500. So today you can buy about 5 shares of Nike for $100, a little over 5 shares. So when Nike pays dividends, it takes that money and reinvests it. So let's say it makes another $100 in dividends just to make it even. It will buy whatever how many shares it can buy with that money, with that dividend. So that way this kind of keeps compounding, keeps building. So if you're looking to park it for a long time, DRIPs are good for that.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I've used DRIPs, dividend reinvestment plans, from time to time. One of the things, to answer the gentleman's question, is I hope I have a chance to talk about investment clubs, because there are several ways to get started in investing. If you're going to be very passive, then you might just want to have a financial advisor or go right to a mutual fund. Like I directed people to Moneta funds. There's also S&P 500, as in Standard & Poor's, S&P 500. You can get that mutual fund from Fidelity, Schwab, TD Ameritrade, and so on. It's fairly easy to find. But the gentleman's question had to do with how do you ascertain good stock investments. That's another drill down level where you really want to learn the process of stock selection. So there's a nonprofit that I'm very attached to called Better Investing. And the website is the same as the name, just betterinvesting.org. And maybe I'll have a little conversation with Usama and Clarence, and we can do a little brainstorming, because there may be the interest in starting an investment club. If not, I can certainly do a couple presentations on the stock selection price that they use. It won't exactly help replicate the case of Amazon, because when a company first comes public, that's the IPO, you really can't predict where it's going to end up. So there's a little bit of luck there, although, you can use a lot of deduction and assumptions that might play out in your favor. But the Better Investing methodology really looks at more mature companies than IPOs, but they're not so mature like AT&T that they've been around forever and ever and maybe are finished with their growth years. The Better Investing methodology wants you to find companies that are not babies, but they're a little bit like teenagers, Just like if we looked at all of the young people working with Usama, who's between, let's say, 16 and 21. Well, we'd interview them, we kind of see what their grades are, and then we put our money, if we're going to give out a scholarship, to the one that we think is going to make it the furthest or be the most successful. We can do the same thing with stocks, looking at them, not that they are immediate IPOs, but they've been around for 5 to 10 years. We got a little bit of a track record to look at, and we can then make some good assumptions about where they're going to be 20 years from now, or certainly 5 years from now. And that's the methodology that I can talk more about in one of the presentations. That would take, a good hour.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, with that said, thank you again, Bob. Thank you for that presentation, dropping knowledge, and just providing us with your experience. Everybody that's on the call, man, thank y'all. But you know the drill. Close it out. 50 out. 50 out. I'm gonna stop this recording before we get to this 50.
Oh, Billy, push up time.
Hey, I'm locking out too. All right. That's for you, Madu.
Oh, jeez. I do not like it.
Hey, my bad. I lost count talking trash. What number you on, DY? 40. Oh, I'm gonna do 20 more. 1, 2, 3.
Hey, Robert, that was a quick 50, Robert.
Well, I did 6 this time. That was rough.
Hey, that's one more than the last time. You already
progress right
I'm gonna
there.
try to build it up a little bit.